The Spiritual Light and Color of Life. Xiefeng. January 18th, 2007. Translated by Transin. Both the material and the non-material show light and color. Everything in the universe has feelings and psychic energy. Life is a non-material structure with spirituality, and every light and color is the result of its structure. Although both life beings and non-life beings have spiritual lights, those of life beings possess initiative, whereas those of non-life beings only reflect light from spiritual sources. The lights and colors of materials are visible, but the lights and colors of non-materials need to be experienced with spiritual perception. The stronger that a vitality is, the richer its color will be, and the brighter its radiance becomes. The spiritual light of a life has color which is determined by its non-material life structure. Life has levels. Although different levels of it may embody the same spiritual lights, their colors are quite different. Strong or weak of spiritual lights just indicates life beings waxing and waning, not their qualities, whereas their colors indicate their qualities, not their strengths or weakness. People can be divided into ignorant persons, laity, mortals, sages, and celestials. Celestials include saints, lofty people, and pure people, but also goblins and devils. This kind of classification is not based on the external characteristics of life beings, but rather on their intentions and qualities. Just as with diamonds, rubies, sapphires, opals, olivines, moonstones, aquamarines, tourmalines, amethyst, and other gemstones. All of them are stones, but their structures and qualities vary. Everyone has their spiritual light. Those of ignorant persons, laity, mortals, and sages are relatively weak, while those of saints, lofty people, pure people, goblins, and demons are much stronger. Ordinary people's spiritual colors are flat. Those of immortals are bright and intense. Generally speaking, ordinary people's spiritual lights are white with faint light, like a mass of vapor, but sages are faint-colored, which are often changing. With the perfection of structure and the purification of quality, the spiritual lights gradually show into a fixed color. Saints, lofty people, and pure people show colors of red, yellow, and purple. Goblins show blue and green. Devils show black. Buddhas, including super-celestial beings, show a wide spectrum of 7 colors. As spiritual lights belong to the non-material, they are invisible to naked eyes and are only visible to those with Buddha eyes. Generally speaking, auspicious lights indicate the life quality of heaven, whereas dark or absent light indicates one of hell. We can sense invisible, spiritual light and color when we socialize with others. If we feel fresh, open and clear, bright and beautiful, happy, warm, cheerful, inspired, and safe when reading someone's aura or articles, then this person's spiritual light is auspicious. If we feel pain, oppression, heaviness, discouragement, are unsettled, and feel negativity, depression, and worry, then this person's is dark. To make your spiritual light become more auspicious, you must perfect the non-material structure of your life. The more perfect it is, the more auspicious it will be, and people will sense your degree of perfection. If our consciousness is clear and ordered, then colorful light will show. If our consciousness is disordered, then colorful light will not show. We can be enlightened from a magnet or from ordinary iron. The former has polarity, the latter does not. The difference between them lies in the arrangement of their molecules. The former is orderly, the latter is not. Of course, our environment can inspire us as well. Just as when we go shopping, some shops are clean and tidy, bright and lively, and welcome us inside, while others are disorganized and gloomy and make us feel oppressed. The non-material structures of life are like those shops. Some people's life structures are like green hills with clear water, bright and colorful, while others are more like barren hills with muddy rivers, barren grounds, and evil. Different structures present different spiritual lights and colors. Looking up to heaven, we only see the blue sky and white clouds, but cannot see the concealed, infinitely natural scenery. This is because our spiritual perception is too weak for our consciousness to enter into the non-material world. What do we see as we gaze across the vast Gobi Desert? Most people just see sand, but some see the grand phenomenon of heat currents flowing across the Earth's surface, while others even see mirages. The longer you concentrate on something, the more you will understand it and find things that are invisible to others. I hope that everyone glows with auspicious and colorful spiritual lights and that everyone will see them.
生命的生死新概念。
New understanding on the life and death of life. Xiefeng. April 3rd, 2011. Translated by Transin. The issues of life and death with regard to life do not exist. The only issue is that of conversion. So-called life and death are only false appearances which have mistaken the existence and disappearance of the carriers of life for those of life itself. It is a misunderstanding of life to say that it is born or dies. Since people do not understand the whole truth of life and its length, they define it mistakenly by way of their limited vision. Mourning bacteria have no idea of the first and last days of months. Cicadas are unaware of spring and fall. Bacteria that emerge in the morning and die in the evening have no experience of what days are like. Cicadas that are born in spring and die in fall cannot understand the passage of seasons. Butterflies who fly and dance among flowers will never know the existence of winter. Humans cannot see the past or future, so humans always measure the length and depth of life against the more transient life. How do we react to mourning bacteria saying that there are no dark nights? What do we think when cicadas say that there is no spring or fall? How do we feel when people tell us that there are no previous or future lives? People often talk about life and death by saying that someone is born or has died. Actually, what they refer to is only the birth, growth, and death of their flesh, the carriers of lives, not their life. Therefore, it is necessary to redefine the life and death of life. A person's downward conversion from the human world to a lower life space is death. A person's horizontal transmigration back to the human world is half-death. A person's upward conversion from the human world to a higher life space is life. More specifically, a person is dead if they transmigrate to the plant world, the animal world, hell, the frozen layer, or the inflamed layer. A person is half dead and half alive if they transmigrate back to the human world. A person gains life if they advance toward any of the three levels of heaven, the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, or the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world. It is up to everyone to choose for themselves whether they go to death, half-death, or life. Hence, we can see that some people are marching downward, some are lost on the road, and some are proceeding to a more wonderful rebirth.
答复王神医关于灵魂的咨询。
What is soul and the features of souls? A reply to the consultation on soul from Dr. Wang. Xiefeng. October 11th, 2006. Translated by Transin. Let me introduce Dr. Wang Rongquan of One Clinic of Jiuquan City, Gansu Province. He acquired the nickname of Miracle Working Doctor from his noble medical ethics and strong healing skills. I had the honor of meeting with him in June of last year and witnessed his method of treating patients, which was truly quick and efficient and priced fairly and reasonably. Humility and open-mindedness are commonalities of all wise people, and Dr. Wang is no exception. Both of us were sincerely impressed after our brief conversation, and I entertained a couple phone calls from him, including one yesterday morning concerning the question of souls. I posted my understanding of souls below for him to read when he went online. At the dock, we can often hear someone shouting, "Look, the ship is coming." Standing in the station platform, we can hear someone saying, "The train is coming." At the airport, we say, "The plane is taking off." The question is, what commonalities do ships, trains, and planes all share? Can any of them come and go by themselves? Certainly not. The reason that they move about is that they have souls, which control them. People. Without people, they would be nothing more than structures of energy and aggregates of matter. A daughter said to her mother, "Look, Daddy is coming home." A passers-by shouted in panic, "Run! A vicious dog is running this way." A young girl cried to her older sister, "My rabbit ran away." We need to ask what trait the dad, the wild animal, and the rabbit share. Why can they move? And why are they no longer able to do so when they die but their legs, vital organs, and heads are still there? The reason is that they can only move when souls inhabit their bodies. After their souls leave them, they are no longer able to move even though their physical structures are intact. They become the same as those ships, trains, and airplanes without people. So, the physical structures are nothing more than aggregates of materials formed by energy attached to them. They are vessels. The driver of the train gets off and leaves it motionless and dead, but the soul of the train, the driver, is not dead. Just as a soul leaves its flesh motionless and dead, but the soul of the flesh does not die. The Western research of near-death and numerous instances of reincarnation tell us loudly and clearly that human souls still exist after their physical deaths, and that they can find other carriers to continue to exercise their missions, just as drivers can replace cars and continue driving. Many people have witnessed the phenomena of soul infusion. Very normal people's voices change suddenly along with their pronunciation and intonation, and they say something very strange, but have no idea why. This proves that another soul has expressed itself by borrowing this carrier. Many people have such experiences in which they clearly perceive that other persons are talking to them in their minds, and they can even remember and write down what they tell them. Jane Roberts, Seth, and her receiver, who disseminated New Era information, and Neil, the author of Conversations with God. Their behaviors have proved the independent existence of souls, but what exactly are they? The answer is that souls are non-material structures with spirituality and share the following 8 basic characteristics. Souls have spiritual nature and are alive. Souls are non-material, invisible, inaudible, untouchable, and immeasurable in the material world. Souls are weightless. Souls are consciousnesses. Souls function in the material world only when they are attached to specific carriers. Souls have memory. Souls have regional properties. Souls can penetrate and enter any substances from their gaps like beams and waves. Souls are consciousnesses that contain psychic energy but are not the psychic energy themselves. The psychic energy is the source of life and is found everywhere in the universe, whereas souls are just small psychic energy regiments. Not only can souls take people as their carriers, but they can also inhabit other animate and inanimate objects such as houses, vehicles, computers, trees, stones, and so on as their carriers as well. Whether souls go to heaven, hell, or back to earth depends on their contents, namely their consciousnesses. The reincarnation of souls abides strictly to the management and arrangement of Tao. All the reincarnations of souls must pass through the continent for 3 realms lives to pass through. This is a filter with different densities at different layers through which the souls will enter their corresponding spaces. In Life Genuine, we usually identify consciousnesses instead of souls for easier understanding and refinement.
梦境和生命空间
Dream World and the Space of Life. Xiefeng. August 15th, 2017. Translated by Treasure. Suppose that you could either sleep and have a wonderful but illusory dream for 80 years, or that you could study, work, and struggle in reality for the same 80 years. Which would you rather do? Enjoy the unreal dream or struggle through reality? It is the same 80 years. What is the difference between the real and the unreal one? Are both not experiences of life? To life, there is no real or unreal problem. Where were you when you were dreaming? Is everything in a dream not our reality? Is the feeling in the dream not real? Are the feeling and experience of annoyance, worry, joy, and fear not the same as they are in our reality? Actually, life is also a dream. However, our thoughts corner us stubbornly in a supposed reality and we ignore the other space of life. I. Human lives die, but life does not. Life will continue to live on in a dream without a body. The point is, which dreams shall we dream? Pleasant ones or nightmares? The space of life is infinite, and the time of life is also infinite. Everyone dreams. What happens in those dreams? It may be unthinkable and unimaginable, but you can reunite with dead loved ones, allow yourself to fly, miraculously transform into things and situations that you long for, and you may even make love in your dreams, and the feelings of making love in dreams are more intense, comfortable, unforgettable, and impressive than of those in reality. What is unimaginable in reality can be realized in dreams. You can even attain magic powers and spells. Why not live a wonderful dream? What matters is how we can make long-term wonderful dreams. Associated with our consciousness is the ability to have a nightmare or a pleasurable dream. All the situations and scenarios in our dreams are created by our consciousnesses. In other words, they are related to the qualities of our lives. If our non-material structure is perfect, then we can have great dreams, while defective non-material structures lead to nightmares. Question: where are heaven and hell? Answer: in our consciousness, the non-material structures of our lives. If our minds are full of envy, hate, greed, fear, anxiety, struggling, fighting, killing, despoiling, maintaining possessions, and controlling others, then we will undoubtedly live in hell and suffer from many nightmares, and our lives will descend into hell when we die as humans. Conversely, if our minds are full of joy, gratitude, appreciation, pleasure, love, the fragrance of beauty, elegance, and unrestrained nature, then we will live in heaven and our dreams will be pleasant, and our lives will certainly ascend to heaven after our human bodies pass on. What kind of dreams are most of yours? If they are usually beautiful and you love everything in them, it is proven that your consciousness is fine. On the contrary, if they always leave you annoyed, sad, depressed, fearful, or terrified, it proves that your consciousness has too many misdirected and harmful thoughts. Our consciousnesses create both our realities and our dreams. We are not aware of our real consciousnesses. The ones that we know are only the surface ones, as the tops of icebergs floating above the water, but what really works are the deep consciousness, which we do not understand very well. Just as the bottom part of the iceberg is much bigger and supports the part that we see, it is the deep consciousness of which we are not aware that support our dreams. The dream world is created by the deep consciousness, and our reality comes from them as well. There are 18 factors which we are unable to manage or control in life, including our inability to choose our parents and the times and surroundings of our birth. Why can we not self-manage and control them? Simply, all is controlled by the deep consciousness, and just as in the dream world, we are unable to manage or control anything. The deep consciousness connects with Tao. It is dominated by the universal laws and rules of life, such as the laws of causality and of attraction. Retribution will come from the law of causality, while checks and balances will emerge from the law of attraction. Thus, everything becomes very complex, but meticulous and without any loopholes. It can be concluded that it is easy to reach hell but harder to enter heaven than the proverbial camel passing through the eye of a needle. There is the rub that it is difficult to remove the bad factors in the deep consciousness or to clean the clutter from the passage of life. If those bad factors in the deep consciousness can be removed, and if that clutter can be cleaned, then all of your dreams will be great ones, and you will ultimately ascend to heaven.
解说灵魂的地域性。
Explaining the regional properties of souls. Xiefeng. October 16, 2006. Translated by Treasure. Number 7 of the 8 features of souls describe their regional properties. But what does this mean? It means that all souls are bound to reincarnate into those places and cultures where they are most familiar. Black people are bound to reincarnate into black. White people reincarnate into white, and yellow ones into yellow. Japanese individuals usually reincarnate into Japanese cultures, Chinese into Chinese cultures, and Indians into Indian cultural environments. Why is this so? It is because of the structure of life. Water droplets fuse together easily as they also do with milk, but they will never fuse with oil. This is a characteristic of their structures. The apple never falls far from the tree, and so it is with souls because one only feels safe when they are in a familiar environment. The size of a soul world is proportional to the content of its soul. People who live in remote villages all their lives will reincarnate into those same villages because their souls only know those contents and nothing else. The structures of their lives are only in accordance with life in those villages. Structures have attractions, like birds of a feather flock together, and similar structures attract each other. Europeans rarely reincarnate as Chinese because the cultures there do not conform to their soul's contents. They lack gravity to them, or it is far less to them than that of their original culture. Anyone who lives in a strange place within an alien culture will feel out of place, lonely, and eager to go home. Going home is every soul's wish, but where is home? The most familiar place is one's home, and home is one's most familiar place. This is to say that souls have regional properties. Generally speaking, one will usually reincarnate into a place that is most familiar to them. We have never heard of a Tibetan living Buddha coming from Africa or Europe. According to the above principle, souls should reincarnate into their own families, and this would prove the regional property of souls. So why do some people reincarnate into places far away? This question involves their carriers of life. Souls are spiritual entities which can only function when they become attached to physical bodies. When one dies but no carrier is available from within their immediate comfort zone, then they will have to find a carrier from within the smallest possible radius of that place. Therefore, if one wants to find their late relative, then they should search within a radius of 10, then 20, then 50, and then within 100 kilometers of their home to find a family that has been blessed with a newborn child soon after their relative's passing. They can then check the birthmark of the child, or sense of the child by their hearts of whether the child is the reincarnation of their departed loved one. Of course, if their relative has gone to heaven or another space, then they might never be found. Some people may not accept the concept of souls' regional properties, though they can be verified thusly. Everyone's dreams reflect the contents of their souls, then would the vast majority of Europeans dream of Asian or African people when they sleep? Of course they would not. Even if one lives in a foreign society now, the frequency of foreign people appearing in their dreams will be low, unless in the next lifetime will some fragments emerge in your dreams. This can raise a great mystery of life. Where do we go in our afterlives? Consider that if no relevant familiar images of heaven fill your consciousnesses, then how could you go there? The truth is that this would be impossible because the transformation of life is subject to strict and meticulous management and the restraint of Tao, which is a scientific system. If you hope to go to heaven but know nothing about it, or are only minimally aware of it, then your soul would be totally unprepared to go there. If you know and understand the guide, then you could find him easily. If not, then it would be much more difficult. And if you have no concept of him at all, then you would not recognize him even if he were standing at your side. The 1,000-year world is the easiest place to which people can advance, but you must understand it, so please study it. You must self-cultivate and self-refine according to the lifestyle of the celestials who live there. In this way, your consciousnesses will be focused there, and you can go there directly after you pass on. Life is like this. The more we know, the larger our scope of activities will be. What does not exist in our consciousness has no existence in our life. Therefore, we need to make full use of our limited physical time to expand our life spaces. Do not long for the ephemeral, passing mortal world, but for a better place. Understand the place for which you yearn as much as possible. Be reasonable and willing to advance.
投胎与堕胎
Reincarnation and abortion. Xiefeng. July 8, 2011. Translated by Tong Xin. What is a fetus? In Chinese, the word translates to a house that is built over a period of about 1 month. Note, fetus is written in Chinese as Tai. The left part means month and the right part means pavilion. Zygotes are less than 1 month old and embryos are less than 2 months old, and neither can be called fetuses. Rather, they are only fertilized eggs. Is an unfertilized egg a life? Of course not. A chicken can only hatch from one which has been fertilized, only when the time is right for it to do so, and only then can we call it a life. Can we call a fertilized egg a life? No, because it has no self-awareness. Only those things with self-awareness can be called lives. Otherwise, man-made mechanical devices such as trains and cars would qualify as such. The meaning of a fetus is the house that is built within 1 to several months, and it is therefore not a life, but the house for a life that will come to live inside of it. On the matter of reincarnation, it is the spiritual entity, namely the soul of a life, that enters into the house which is built for it. It is only when this soul of a life enters into a fetus that it becomes a life. When does the soul of a life reincarnate? Reincarnation usually happens at about 10 days before birth, while most of the process happens during the 3 days before birth. Many cases from examples from throughout history in different cultures prove this. The conclusion leads us to believe that fetuses in wombs can be called lives from only about 10 days before their births. Otherwise, they are not lives, but houses waiting for new lives to enter. Christianity and Buddhism regard abortions as sins because they kill lives. Such views are wrong because they do not reflect the facts. If we take a fertilized egg or a fetus as a life, then the concepts of heaven, hell, and reincarnation cannot exist because many new lives are born. Many old ones die continuously, and one could only live for one life as a human, and this is clearly not true. Should a young girl who becomes pregnant after having sex without any knowledge and methods of contraception abort her growing embryo or fetus? Please do not preach morality here. It is useless at this time, and we should only consider the ramifications of whether she should carry to term or not. If you do not agree that she should abort, would you be willing to be responsible for the nursing and rearing of her child? If you will not do this, but speak loudly against her abortion and say that abortion is a sin and a crime, please explain where your moral responsibility is. Life genuine is the final course for human beings. Everything is concluded by the final course.
清扫生命通道
Clear the passage of life. Xiefeng. August 14th, 2017. Translated by Fengxing. By the existence of things, we profit, and by the non-existence of things, we are served. For something to be useful, it must be empty. Water can only flow freely through pipelines that are empty. If they are not empty, its flow will be restricted. The most obvious example is how drains in kitchens and washrooms become blocked when garbage clogs the pipes. A pipe clogged by garbage is useless. The only way to solve that problem is to remove the garbage, otherwise, it becomes useless. Life is like a passage which must be kept clear. Once extra clutter enters it, life will become weak and powerless, will be rigid and corrupted and even useless. When I study life and contrast a life that is bound for heaven with the one that is going to hell, I find that the passage of heaven-bound lives is clear, whereas the ones of hell-bound lives are filled with extra clutter and are badly blocked. What exactly blocks the passage of life? Above all, we must learn what life is. Life is a non-material structure with spirituality, which shows its character mainly through the consciousness, also called the soul. Actually, life, soul, and consciousness are the same thing. In order to talk about it more conveniently and clearly, I substitute consciousness for life, and when I speak of consciousness, I really mean life. Life's passage is blocked right by clutter in the consciousness. Let us examine the types of things that clutter our consciousness. Joy, anger, sorrow, happiness, grief, fear, and fright do it. Property, money, reputation, status, and power do it. Tao, virtue, benevolence, righteousness, courtesy, and faith do it. Relatives, families, nationalities, groups, political parties, religions, and nations do it. Faith, ideals, successes, proposals, and targets do it. All of our knowledge, education, and experience does it. All the views which have been formed about life, values, life, and the universe do it. Ideas from traditions and religions do it. Everything listed above are obstacles that block the passage of life. Now let us look at the teachings of Laozi, Sakyamuni, and Jesus. The core of Laozi's teachings is nothingness, returning to being a baby. Sakyamuni's teachings focus on being empty. One's mind should not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or dharma. Your mind should not abide in anything. The core of Jesus' teachings is you should be converted and become one as little child. The teachings of Celestial, Buddha, and God focus on one point, that is clearing the passage of life. Why should we clean life to keep it flowing smoothly? The answer is obvious. When a water pipe is blocked, it is useless. When a bedroom is stuffed, no one can occupy it. When the passage of life is blocked, life will lack of nimbus and will slip down toward hell, so it is necessary to clear the passage of life. With respect to real life, the more possessions that one owns, the more trouble, worries, fright, and the less freedom, elegance, and flexibility they have. The more that clutters their consciousness, the more rigid, possessive, stubborn, and conservative they become. The more they dare not to take one step beyond the limit. A life like this actually becomes more miserable, tiring, and tragical. Einstein once said that what prevented him from thinking was the education he had received. I can tell you that what prevents one from achieving happiness, joy, freedom, and blessing comes from what they have possessed in their consciousness. And what prevents mankind from achieving peace, happiness, and sustained prosperity is exact what they hold fast to. I understand fully the broad way to heaven and how a person achieves a happy life, and I know clearly how mankind can avoid man-made and natural disasters and how to realize a sustainable development. But more importantly, I know how a life can arrive in heaven. However, few believe my words because people's passages of life are too cluttered. Accordingly, if one wants a better life and wants to arrive in heaven, they must clear their own life passage first.
生命的高峰体验和极乐妙境。
The peak experience and bliss state of life. Xiefeng. September 30th, 2011. Translated by Treasure. The prestigious American psychologist Abraham Harold Maslow has presented his theory of the hierarchical needs of life, in which he postulates that self-realization is the highest need of one's life, that the most perfect symbol of obtaining the highest need is peak experiences, and that his definition of it is a strong identity experience. I will summarize the following 18 characteristics of its specific intention here. Everything blends into one harmonious and integrated whole. Becoming an integral part of nature by losing oneself and melting into it. Being in the best state as when a river flows vigorously. Being good at what one does and handling things with great facility. Being full of confidence as if all can be conquered. Being free from suffering and optimistic about everything. Being as unsophisticated and pure as a newborn baby. Being flexible and tactical and improvise at will. Being unique by blooming one's own nature fully. Being absorbed in the present. Being unworldly and regarding spiritual pursuit as supreme. Being in a state of perfection with abundant essence, chi, and spirit. Being poetic and full of mysterious ecstasy. Release one's energy completely and being clear, bright, and fresh, and as if all inner. Feeling fresh, clear, and being free from hostility and hate within. Being free from worldly affairs and at absolute peace. Immersing oneself within the ecstasy of delight and feeling everything's amazement. Being overjoyed and grateful for God's. How many people can enjoy the peak experience that is described above? I suppose very few. What is that wonderful state that obsesses you and makes you lose yourself and meld with the outside world feel like? Consider the following descriptions. I feel like I am in heaven. I have a vague sense of vertigo, that exciting warmth, fullness, wetness, and power. I feel extremely excited and out of breath. At the same time, my head becomes as light as a feather as if I were dreaming with a vague, distant voice in a stagnant moment. Joy, pleasure, excitement, and thrill all make me madly joyous. I feel so terrific, seems in my body's best state. I feel as if I were awakening into a new life which had just begun at that moment. It felt wonderful, almost unbearable ecstasy for human being. Charming, blood rushing, desperate, gone with the spirit, absolute excitement, wonderful, intoxicating, powerful, beauty beyond words. In some aspects, my libido awakens me and gives me a chance to transcend myself, awakening from the dense fog of daily life and being. I feel as if being away from my flesh, from my spirit, with no care for everything that matters to my daily self. My life stays here like the eternal, but all in one instant, tasting the sweetness and beauty of life, blending into each other mightily. An amazing feeling, my own self-existence in another dimension, floating and melting from the supporting point of my life. A sudden gush of roaring fire, strong, devouring, wonderful. A pleasant, refreshing, irresistible sensation, growing until it becomes a rapid, high-altitude, screaming rocket with blast-like pleasure appearing in my sexual organs and then radiating throughout my entire body while everything else is gone. My inside feels full of vitality. Its strength, wetness, heat, and intensity feel wonderful. For almost the complete time, all sorts of burning, wonderful sensations radiate from within my thighs as if everything around me has ceased to exist and I am completely immersed in this wonderful feeling. Until now, I haven't found a more wonderful feeling in my entire life. The sensation is an utter immersion without willpower and disconnected from my mind. It conquers me completely and occupies my body. The best word to describe this physiological sensation in terms of its destructive overall effect is temerarious. The only physical feeling that I can equate it to would be some forms of stiffness and tension, and also the indistinguishable internal explosion of the parts of my sex organs. My body tightens gradually, my feeling reaches a steep peak of bliss, and then I reach an extremely joyous high plateau and let sharp screams out and slip across this feeling of bliss peak. Then my body convulses violently 5 or 6 times, sharply and intensely at first, then more bluntly, slowly, and gently. The descriptions above describe the peak experiences of reaching sexual climaxes. In his investigative report spanning 5 continents, Maslow stated that there are 2 methods for mankind to acquire peak experiences. One is sex, the other is music. Sex is the most common way to acquire those peak experiences. The supreme realm for Buddhist study is entering the Elysium world, and doing so means immersing into those peak experiences eternally. In order to enter the Elysium world, one must achieve an enlightened heart that is perceptive of nature, for Buddha is nature and nature is Buddha. Actually, mankind's sexual love experiences are comparatively low level, and those peak experiences that are attained through them are short-lived. To attain eternal, peak experiences, one must achieve self-harmony. That is to say, a life must possess both yin and yang and be completely free from the external sexual supplement but remain in the state of oneness with yin and yang, just as the yin-yang fish shows in Taoism. Only that means entering into the Elysium world where one can experience the peak experiences of life. Then, how does one achieve self-harmony? This is an enormous, complex, and systematic project of self-refinement and self-improvement. What I do each day is to guide Chanyuan celestials to develop towards self-harmony. To recap briefly, in order to achieve self-harmony, you need to meet these four requirements. You must de-weed your soul garden completely. You must pay back all your debts from all of your past lives. You must accumulate enough merits and virtues in heaven. Your consciousness must ascend to the perfect state like a celestial being or Buddha. The building and living experiences of the new oasis for life are all for fulfilling the above tasks. I designed the new oasis for life carefully, including its locations and all the details of its planning and building. At present, all Chanyuan celestials who have taken part in building and experiencing the life in it can have joy, happiness, freedom, and blessings here. They will feel the peak experiences continuously and finally attain self-harmony in order to enter into the celestial island continent and enjoy eternal bliss. In fact, Buddha and Bodhisattva have already revealed the way to attain self-harmony and enjoy the peak experience of life and bliss long ago as described in Heart Sutra. When Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, Lord who looks down with compassion, attained enlightenment through his profound wisdom, he realized that all forms, feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and cognitions are only illusions. With this realization, he moved beyond all suffering and difficulty. Sariputra, therefore, the tangible comes from the invisible which contains it. There are no essential differences between the two, and the same applies for feelings, thoughts, behavior, and cognition. No matter which of the above, none of their natures have birth or death, being or non-being, defilement or purity, or increasing or decreasing. Therefore, the nature of the world and of life is invisible. Neither any individuals nor any of their sensations listed above really exist. Thinking and our physical perceptions of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling mislead us into our illusions and apply questions to our cognitions about good versus evil, ego versus non-ego, wise versus unwise, life versus death, and attainment versus non-attainment of supreme dharma. All of these perceptions are only illusions. The Bodhisattva relied on the wisdom that could bring him to the shores of freedom. He was entirely free from worry and thus overcame all fears and all that upset him, leaving behind this distorted, illusory world and ultimately attaining nirvana. All Buddhas of the past, present, and future have and will continue to rely on that same wisdom to bring them to the shores of freedom, help to attain supreme authentic wisdom. Therefore, know that wisdom that can bring us to the shore of freedom is a great spiritual mantra, a great bright mantra, a supreme mantra, an unequaled mantra. It can remove all suffering. It is genuine and not false. It reads, "Go, go, go. Go to the other shore with transcending wisdom. Go to the realm of freedom. Go to attain enlightenment soon. Just go." Finally, I want to repeat the last words of Heart Sutra. Go, go, go. Go to the other shore with transcending wisdom. Go to the realm of freedom. Go to attain enlightenment soon. Just go.
有关生命和生命轮回的8个小秘密。
8 Secrets on Life and Samsara. Xiefeng. June 18th, 2011. Translated by Treasure. The total number of lives is fixed. The total number of lives in the Earth universe is fixed and does not vary. This is to say that the total number of lives is fixed and that the only changes are from the phenomena of the reincarnation of lives. This is as with the fixed quantity of water on Earth. If there is a drought somewhere, it does not mean that it has decreased. If there is a flood somewhere else, it does not mean that it has increased. Leave a bowl of water in the sun until it evaporates completely. Has it died? Of course not. It has reincarnated. When clouds float in and rain falls from them, has more water been produced? Of course not. It has just reincarnated onto the Earth. Unless the whole system of the Earth changes, the total amount of water on it will never change. It will neither increase nor decrease, just reincarnate. It may reincarnate into icebergs, the sea, the earth, or clouds. Water runs in cycles like this for thousands of years. The number of people on the Earth has increased. So does this mean that new lives have been born? Of course not. These so-called new lives are just reincarnated from other spaces into the Earth. If the number of people on the Earth increases, the number of animals may decrease. If that of animals increases, that of humans may decrease. If that of lives in hell decrease, that of lives in the animal world may increase. If the number of people on Earth suddenly decreases dramatically for a period of time, where have those lives gone? Are they dead? Of course they have not disappeared. They may have gone to heaven, hell, the plant layer, or the animal world. In short, the amount of life in the Earth universe remains the same, just as with the total amount of water on Earth. The lower a life's level is, the greater its quantity is. The amount of insects is surely greater than that of birds. That of grass is surely greater than that of herbivores. That of herbivores is surely greater than that of carnivores. That of non-humans is surely greater than that of humans. That of lives in hell is surely greater than that of lives in heaven, and that of human lives is surely greater than that of celestial beings. The question then becomes, why is the number of super-celestial beings in the celestial islands continent greater than that of humans on the Earth? Is this a contradiction? Up to now, the number of super-celestial beings has been 30 billion, while that of humans has only risen to 7 billion. Does this phenomenon go against the law that the lower a life level is, the greater that level's amount of lives is? Actually, no. From a static point of view, the number of super-celestial beings is larger than that of humans, but from a dynamic point of view, the number of human beings is still larger. The number of super-celestial beings has not changed across hundreds of millions of years, but the total number of humans has been trillions during the same time period. Things, including lives, are valued according to their scarcity. Jesus Christ told us that the road taken by great numbers leads to destruction, lower life spaces, but that only a small number will take the way to life. From this perspective, when a person views things as the masses do, then they will go toward lower life spaces. When the masses go a certain way and you follow them, then surely it will be toward lower life spaces. Only those who concentrate on the things that common people ignore and remain indifferent to the things that common people value highly have any hope of ascending to higher life spaces. Bad people must outnumber good people. According to the law of the amount of lower-level life being greater than that of higher-level life, it can be deduced that the number of evil people surely exceeds that of righteous people. This is also to say that the number of ignorant people is more than that of laities. That of laities is more that of mortals. That of mortals is more than that of sages, and theirs is more than that of celestials. It is as in human society where the number of common workers exceeds that of business managers, that of managers exceeds that of city mayors, that of mayors exceeds that of provincial governors and ministers, and theirs is greater than that of national presidents and prime ministers. Any other arrangement would be chaotic and disorderly. Life is easy to reincarnate into lower life spaces, but hard to sublimate into higher life spaces. In human society, it is easier to commit crimes than to become role models and easier to become bad examples than good ones because it is easier to appease one's flesh than to sublimate their souls. People like to cater to the values of the masses which fall into the category of high quantity but low quality of life. So it is much easier to reincarnate towards lower life spaces, and many do that unconsciously. Therefore, when the masses believe that, when a boy grows up, he takes a wife, and when a girl does so, she finds a husband, it is a natural outlook on life, and you can predict the results when you take it as your own. When you follow the masses who are making money and doing business with companies, the consequences of reincarnation can be foreseen. But when you follow those who practice Qigong to attain Buddhahood or become celestials, you will certainly achieve a very different result. The number of people who are going to higher level spaces is small. Ordinary people have inertia, are unwilling to accept new ideas, new thinking, and new values, and prefer traditions that they are unwilling to surrender. So it is hard for them to sublimate towards higher level spaces. Leopards cannot change their spots. Peonies have shown their nature for thousands of years, as have lotuses, willows, cattle, and sheep. Without external forces or infiltration from different structures, material will not change. Without guidance from gods, Buddhas, celestials, demons, goblins, or monsters, we will always remain human. Therefore, in the process of reincarnation, we must approach those who have the consciousness of celestials, Buddhas, and gods. If we hear their teachings and practice them, then we will be blessed greatly. In the same way, if we follow people with elusive thinking, it will surely lead us astray. If you want to sublimate your life to higher level spaces, then you must never follow the words and deeds of like-minded people. A leopard cannot change its spots, and it is very difficult to change a person. Therefore, every stylite must remain awake. If there is no experience of being reborn, then their own life will be difficult to sublimate. The direction of life is determined by our consciousness when we are dying. The direction of life is determined by people's consciousness at the moment when they retire from this world. We know that the essence of life is determined by its non-material structure, which is mainly shaped by its type of consciousness, its non-material structure, and its life state. Therefore, if someone attains the consciousness of an animal at the very moment when they leave the world, then they must go to the animal world after they die, but if they attain the consciousness of a celestial being when they leave the world, then they must go to fairyland and so on. A question arises here. If one maintains a human consciousness throughout their life, can they suddenly attain Buddha's consciousness and go to the Pure Land at the moment of their physical departure? The answer is no. There is no possibility of a qualitative change without an accumulation of smaller quantitative changes, nor can anyone overcome the gravity of their life. Additionally, human consciousnesses develop toward the places where their treasures lie. If they lack any accumulation of treasures in heaven, it will be impossible for them to attain the quality of life in heaven without having their treasure there. Where our treasures lie, so too will our hearts be, and there we will find our futures. The imprinting of life's reincarnation. Geneticists know that human DNA carries genetic information and that people who have had physical injuries in their bodies in previous lives have been imprinted with those injuries in their current lives. By observing what people say and do, we can trace back to their previous lives. And just as geologists know the changes that have taken place by studying landforms and geological structures, we can infer the ages of people by observing their appearances. As we study different kinds of people, we can see that some had been specific types of animals in their previous lives, some must have been humans, and some are from heaven. Sherlock Holmes's ability to solve crimes came from his mastery of details and how he could make judgments based on clues left at the scenes of crimes, including where the criminal came from and their basic characteristics, because everything is imprinted just as with the reincarnation of life. This gives us the message that in order to ascend one's life to heaven, all their human imprints must be eliminated. The mystery of Mengpi soup. Note: Mengpe is the Lady of Forgetfulness in Chinese mythology. It is said in Sutra of Hell's King that ghosts in hell who qualify to reincarnate upward are offered a bowl of Mengpe soup, also called ecstasy soup, to each one, which cause them to forget their previous lives before joining the mortal world as new lives. This is both great compassion and a law that keeps all kinds of lives in order and maintains their dynamic balance. If their memories of previous lives were not eliminated, then human society would be unthinkable. What kind of relationships would exist if people learned that in a previous life, their children were enemies, that their spouse was their grandmother, that a close friend was their enemy, or that their pet was their child? It would create complete chaos and their thinking would be confused. Therefore, the lower level a life is, the more their memories of previous lives must be eliminated. Otherwise, not only would the mortal world be chaotic, but even heaven would be. Each life's information about their previous lives are in codes which cannot be revealed or deciphered randomly. These are cosmic secrets, and if they were to be revealed, conflicts and disasters would result inevitably. The vast majority of people live in confusion and are unaware of the universe's secrets. This is why Jesus said, "To you, it is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but to those who are without, all these things are done in parables, and that seeing, they may see but not perceive, and hearing, they may hear but not understand." lest at any time they should be converted and their sins should be forgiven. The mysteries of life are endless and interesting to explore.
人能轮回成动物的4个逻辑推理。
The 4 logical reasons why human being can reincarnate into animals. Xiefeng. March 20th, 2021. There are many cases recorded in books about the reincarnation of people into animals. There are also many cases of the use of hypnosis in contemporary Western society to remind people that they have been animals in previous lives. Readers who are interested can search for articles about people's reincarnation into animals on the internet. Human beings can reincarnate into animals, and animals can also reincarnate into human beings. The logical reasoning is as follows. The sum of positive and negative energies in the universe is 0. This is a law of the universe. This law tells us that what we get is always equal to what we give. If you get something, you must pay. If you pay, you will get it. Otherwise, there would be no rules of heaven. Also, it's a loss of justice and fairness. From this law, we can know that when one receives something from someone else, he must repay it in some way. There are many ways to repay, one of which is to become animals raised by creditors, which can be pigs, dogs, cattle, horses, sheep, chickens, etc. Therefore, there is a folk saying, "I cannot repay your great kindness. I would like to be one of your cattle or your horse in the next life." This is true. There are not many people who raise animals in modern society, especially those who grow up and live in cities. It is difficult for people to become domesticated animals to repay their debts. They can only go to large farms to reincarnate and provide meat for human beings to compensate for their debts. Life is a kind of non-material structure with spirituality. Usually people call it a soul, and its essence is consciousness. Whatever kind of consciousness you have, you will be reincarnated into that kind of life. This is also a law, also called the law of heaven. When observing people according to this law, you will find that there are quite a few people in the population whose state of consciousness is not much different from a certain type of animal, but can also be very similar to a certain animal in nature that it can even be compared to. Therefore, these people will reincarnate into animals after their physical bodies die. There is a law of life balance in the universe, which tells us that life is always in a state of dynamic balance. Just like the ratio of men and women in human beings is always maintained at 51 to 49, although in a specific time and place, the ratio may exceed 51 to 49, but macroscopically, this ratio remains unchanged, which is called dynamic balance. In nature, the number of any species has an upper limit. Once the upper limit is exceeded, the balance mechanism will come into effect and the number will decline and be reduced. From this we know that there will be a transformation between humans and animals. Once there are more people, there will be fewer animals, and once there are fewer people, there will be more animals. Where do these other animals come from? They are reincarnated from human beings. The human world is a transfer station for life at all levels. This is what I discovered when I observed the continent of the 3 realms that lives pass through. That is to say, human beings, but not only human beings, but there are also gods, Buddhas, immortals, demons, spirits, monsters, ghosts, lions, tigers, wolves, cows, horses, pigs, sheep, chickens, dogs, etc. among them, except insects, microorganisms, shrimps, flowers, and some trees that do not participate in the life reincarnation system. All other kinds of life have their own representatives living in human society in the form of human beings. This phenomenon shows that animals can become human beings, and human beings can become animals. From the above 4 laws, the laws of heaven, it can be concluded that people can reincarnate into animals. Knowing this truth gives us the following 4 revelations and warnings. Never owe debts to others. This debt includes economic debts and emotional debts, as well as debts owed to nature. Even if it is obtained from parents and children, it must be repaid. Examine whether there is a certain animal consciousness in your consciousness. If so, get rid of it as soon as possible. Do not harm domestic animals and wild animals as much as possible. Otherwise, you will be in great danger of being reincarnated into the animal world. Listen to the teachings of sages and try to stay away from demons and spirits. What one should always keep in mind is that divine punishments are slow but sure, like big nets that let nothing slip through them, and heaven will not spare anyone.
生命奥秘声波能量
The mysteries of life, energy of sound waves. Xiefeng. November 28, 2021. Sound waves have frequencies, and different frequencies carry different energies. Different energies have different effects on the world and on life. Any kind of sound will have an impact on the world and life, either a beneficial or harmful impact. When two people quarrel, the sound will have a harmful influence on other people. If two people talk sweetly, the sound will have a beneficial influence on other people. Every sound has its own wavelength and bandwidth like those of sound waves. Different sound waves have different values and functions. Sound waves can be a panacea for healing or a powerful weapon for killing. Avalokite, Vara heart mantra Om Mani Padme Hum has magical sound waves, has the function and magical effect of enhancing truth, goodness, and beauty and suppressing falsehoods, evil, and ugliness. Regular chanting is beneficial to the sublimation of life. When reciting Amitabha, if the A is pronounced as A, it will cause endless harm, but if it is pronounced as A, one will benefit infinitely. What is the reason? Because the sound waves of A and A are different, and since the sound waves are different, their energy is different, their properties are different, their functions are different, and their effects are different. Every time I hear someone pronounce Amitabha as Amitabha, I feel bad, very uncomfortable, want to lose my temper and feel like falling into a dark abyss. But when I hear someone say Amitabha, I feel joy. It makes people feel calm, emotionally stable, and feel like they have entered the kingdom of heaven. Everyone knows the story of Meng Jiangnu crying at the Great Wall. How powerful is Meng Jiangnu's crying? It is said, she cried until the sun and the moon were dimmed. It was dark all around, and the autumn wind howled. The sea waves ran high, and the Great Wall collapsed section by section, covering a distance of 250 miles. Of course, this is an exaggerated description by writers, but the sound waves of Meng Jiangnu's crying have been oscillating in the sky of history, and they directly affect human beings today. The unjust case of Dou Yi is also a well-known story. Dou Yi was wronged and swore that there will be snow in June and 3 years of severe drought in Chuzhou, and her oath came true. The walls of Jericho in the Bible is a well-known story among Christians. After the death of Moses, Joshua served as the leader of the Jews and continued to lead the Jews to march to Canaan. After crossing the Jordan River, on the way to Canaan, one must first enter the city of Jericho. But the walls of Jericho were strong, and the Canaanites would not allow the Jews to enter the city, so the Jews marched around the city for 7 days. After the end of the 7th day, the priests blew their horns, and the Jews shouted loudly at the same time. Then the walls of Jericho collapsed to the sound of trumpets and the shouts of the Jews. It is said that stones weighing several tons, or even dozens of tons that were used in the construction of the Egyptian pyramids were not pulled up manually, nor were they hoisted up by mechanical equipment. Instead, a spell was placed on the stone, and then someone recited the spell, and the stone floated into the air. The floating stones also fit tightly into the city wall and followed the voice of the mantra chanter. Are sound waves that powerful? Many people must know the Chladni figures in the history of science. The German physicist Chladni put a very wide and thin metal sheet on a violin and evenly sprinkled fine sand on the metal sheet, and then Chladni played the violin with a bow. As a result, the fine sand on the metal sheet was arranged into a beautiful pattern. With the change of the melody and frequency of the piano sound, Those beautiful patterns changed shape continuously, forming an ever-changing pattern, which is known as the Chladni figures. The Chladni figures proves that sound waves will cause changes in surrounding objects, cause snow to fall in June, cause city walls to collapse, and of course, cause heavy rains that pour down, overflowing floods, and will even turn a drought to cause an area to become a desert, and create hailstones that will become as big as footballs. Now let's look at the relationship between sound wave energy and life. To gain vigorous vitality, life needs to absorb powerful energy. The stronger the energy, the more vigorous life will be. And sound wave energy is a kind of life energy that cannot be ignored, but it must be noticed that sound wave energy can be beneficial or harmful. Which are beneficial and which are harmful sound wave energies? All sound waves that can make people feel joyful, calm, comfortable, and are uplifting are beneficial sound wave energies, such as beautiful songs and tunes, the whispers of lovers, the peaceful words of saints, the chirping of birds, etc. The sound waves that can make people anxious, bored, worried, and listless are harmful energies, such as the complaints and nagging of others, hoarse shouting, the growling of quarrel makers, and the croaking of crows, etc. From this we know that all positive, active, optimistic, romantic, and musical sound waves are beneficial to life, and all negative, passive, pessimistic, unromantic, and noisy sound waves are harmful to life. This is true not only for others, but also for oneself. That is to say, when a person swears, he hurts others as well as himself. In short, the sounds you like to hear are beneficial to you, and the sounds you don't like are harmful to you. I hope that everyone can absorb the sound wave energies that are beneficial to their lives every day.
自私是生命基因的癌细胞。
Selfishness is the cancer cell in the gene of life. Xiefeng. December 9th, 2021. Do you believe in the existence of heaven? 99% of people either don't believe in the existence of heaven or doubt the existence of heaven. Why do you doubt or not believe in the existence of heaven? Because there are cancer cells in your life genes. These cancer cells are those of selfishness. When a person is selfish, he will never believe in the existence of pure truth, pure beauty, and pure kindness, because his selfishness is like a barrier blocking his sight. Just like it is difficult for a person who has not studied geography and doesn't know about time differences to believe that when he is sleeping in the middle of the night, it is noon in some other places. A selfish person can never feel and experience the pattern and realm of a selfless person, just like a person who has never been hungry cannot feel and experience the taste of hunger. Heaven is the realm of selfless people. The reason why the kingdom of heaven is beautiful is that all people living in heaven are selfless. The territory created by the more selfish people is closer to hell, and the territory created by the more selfless people is closer to heaven. In a social group, from 2 people to 3 people, 4 people, 7 people, hundreds of or thousands of people, if you live among it, you will find that the makers of troubles, pain, anxiety, worry, and fear are all selfish people. The more one is selfish, the more falsehoods, evil, and ugliness he will create. When dealing with people, you will find that it is difficult to get along with some people. The deep root cause is that they are very selfish. The more selfish a person is, the harder it is to get along with him. People cannot get along with each other due to differences in the 3 outlooks: greed, hatred, ignorance, incompetence, suspicion, protecting the interests of the nation and the country, different beliefs resulting in different opinions, to be yourself, to sticking to their opinions, etc., disputes, arguments, battles, the origin of all the above is the selfishness of human nature. All false, evil, and ugly phenomena and incidents in society are caused by selfishness. Are there completely selfless people in the world? Of course there are. There are a lot of them. Did Christ Jesus, Buddha Shakyamuni, and immortal Lao Tzu have selfish motives? Not at all. In the past and present, did the missionaries who went to poor and backward places have selfish motives?
No.
Did those Western missionaries who went to China to establish schools and hospitals have selfish motives?
No.
Did Mother Teresa have selfish motives? No. There is never a shortage of angels and bodhisattvas on earth. Who are the angels and bodhisattvas? Those who are totally selfless are angels and bodhisattvas. Any more questions about this? When angels and bodhisattvas gather together, they can create heaven. When extremely selfish people get together, they can create hell. Is there any basis for this? There sure is. When Chanyuan celestials are together, they can create a picturesque and beautiful Xanadu, and can copy the scenes of heaven in the world. The second home created by Life Chanyuan is a solid proof of this. Selfishness is one of the 36 8 diagrams arrays, mazes. Those who do not live for themselves will be punished by Tao, is a maze. When born as a human, you have to be selfish, and when you come to the Saha world, you have to be selfish, so that people are tightly bound in the maze of selfishness and can't escape the cycle through the 6 worlds, and you can't transcend the 3 realms. If you want to escape the maze of selfishness, you must keep this in mind. If the immortals live only for themselves, they will be punished by Tao. Regardless of whether it is Buddha, immortals, angels, bodhisattva, or all beings in heaven, once they become selfish, they will be destroyed by Tao, and they will surely be laid down in the mortal world and fall into the cycle through the 6 worlds. No matter who they are, emperors, beggars, professors, illiterates, workers, farmers, etc., as long as they are selfless, they will enter heaven. But, rich people, you will never be accepted by the kingdom of heaven, no matter how well you do charity, because rich people themselves are synonyms of selfishness. How can you become rich if you are not selfish? Whether you become rich by wisdom, by creation and invention, or by service, once there are poor people who oppose you, there will be no doubt about your selfish nature. After all, there are no poor people in heaven, and there are no rich people there either. The most perfect character of life is selflessness. Selfishness is the cancer cell of the life gene. The cancer cell that will devour the perfection of life little by little, until it makes life so ugly that it descends into hell.
生命旅途上会有必要的挫折和磨难。
There will be necessary setbacks and tribulations on the journey of life. Xiefeng.
Septembre 2006-2022.
There are different levels of life. The more perfect a life is, that life will be in the higher level space, and the more flawed a life is, that life will be in the lower level space. We are reincarnated into the world because we have flawed lives. If flawed lives want to return to the high-level life space, they need to go through some necessary setbacks and tribulations. The so-called flawed life mainly refers to the life with debts. Whether these debts are in heaven or on earth, they must be repaid. This is stipulated and restricted by the law of the combination of positive and negative energies of the universe is 0, from which we understand that in the lifetime of a human, his main task is to pay off his debts. After the debt is paid off, he will return to heaven. If his debt is not paid off, he must continue to reincarnate in the world. If he not only fails to pay off his debt but also owes more debt, he has to go to live in a space that is lower than that of a human being. The life structure of human beings is born with the function of selfishness. If the life does not have the function of selfishness, it will live forever in heaven. Due to selfishness, it is very difficult for people to repay debts, so Tao arranged some setbacks and tribulations for people to repay debts with. This is determined by the fairness of Tao. So, what we need to understand is, there will be necessary setbacks and tribulations on the journey of life. As the saying goes, As we live in the complications of the human world, we have to adapt ourselves to changing circumstances, which means that 8 or 9 out of 10 things in life we encountered are unsatisfactory, and only 1 or 2 out of 10 things make us happy. When living to the age of 60 or 70, 70 or 80, and reminiscing about the imprints of the past years, people will often sigh and have regrets. In fact, this is a very normal phenomenon. Even if one can start all over again, there will still be a lot of unsatisfactory things that occur. Setbacks and tribulations are unavoidable, because that is the fair arrangement of Tao. Who wants to be a pig? The problem is not whether you want to or not, but if you have to be a pig. When a person owes a huge amount of debt, and he cannot repay the debt at all with conventional ways, then it will be arranged for him to be a pig, to dedicate his blood, meat, bones, and fur, and even to go under a knife to repay his debt, so he can return to the world to be a human again. Everything in the world is a constant. No matter how big or small a circle is, from a small one like the eye of a needle to the large one that encompasses the Milky Way, the ratio of its circumference to diameter is always a fixed number. Various kinds of life, from a bacterium to an earthworm to a person, everything of its life is a constant. Even the water on the earth, whether it is torrential water or it has been dried for 1,000 years, its total amount is a constant, or is a constant quantity. It can be seen from this that the total amount of food a person eats in his life is a constant, or constant amount. When a person consumes the total amount of food at the age of 30, he will definitely starve and die. If the total amount of food is consumed at the age of 70, but he lives frugally and never wastes a grain of rice or a mouthful of grain, then if he is destined to die at the age of 70, but because his total amount of food has not been consumed, his death can only be delayed. The same is true of setbacks and tribulations, which can also be called a life balance mechanism, just like if in this world, a certain governor embezzled and accepted 200 million yuan in bribes, and then was arrested and put in a prison or sentenced to death, and all his property was confiscated. This is fair and just. Or make him terminally ill, or drive him to commit suicide, or let him live day and night without peace. In short, the mechanism of Tao will keep the constant of life rigorous and eternal. Flowers bloom and wither, and the tide rises and falls. The moon tells us that there is only one full moon in a month, and the waning of the moon is a regular phenomenon. Therefore, in the face of tribulations and setbacks, we must maintain a calm mind, and even maintain a joyful mind, because that is repaying debts. Borrowing debts is easy, and to repay them is difficult. Debt repayment is painful, but no matter how painful it is, you must repay the debt with joy. Frustrations and tribulations are almost inevitable, but they can be reduced to the point where you can bear them. The best way to alleviate setbacks and tribulations is to generate merits, and the best way to generate merits is to give and dedicate selflessly. There is no other way. If someone makes you unhappy, and that is also a tribulation.
零的频率解析零是生命之源，